All right, everybody. So Ben Shapiro recently put out an episode on his podcast where he condemned Tucker Carlson for having Nick Fuentes on his show. And what he did was slander Tucker and Nick by playing legit. It's a 41-minute episode. The whole entire first half of the episode, he's literally playing their clips and being able to get views off of their name. And then he subsequently attacks them. Now, this is absurd. And I haven't watched a Ben Shapiro episode in the last 2 years, but this is going to be the first time that we watch it. So I hope you all enjoy. Stick around. We're going to be here for like an hour, and we are going to live react to an episode that Ben Shapiro did where he publicly has a meltdown. I mean, this is a largely broadcasted meltdown. It had like 20 million views on X. It had less on YouTube, but he had a legit meltdown, and so we are going to do exactly what he did. We are going to play his clips and use his clips just like he used Nick's and Tucker's. So here we go. Enjoy.
Hey, folks, I want to do something different on today's show. We're going to cover one topic in depth. That topic is, I think, the most important thing happening in the country. It was a hot topic last week, but I wanted to take some time to really gather my thoughts and speak on it in coherent fashion, holistic fashion. That topic is the fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party by the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation. Now, before we explain what's been happening, let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. It was never about free speech or cancellation. Free speech has a definition, the right to speak free of governmental coercion. I believe in it, of course. I've always defended it. Criticism of bad speech is, in fact, just a form of free speech. Cancellation also has a definition, the banning of particular people, including people like Nick Fuentes, from platforms like X or Facebook. I believe that Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable, but I've never called for his cancellation. And in fact, I've called for his restoration to those services, despite the fact that I think he's odious and despicable. It is not.
So Ben says, I've never called for cancellation. But what he is going to do in these next 20 to 30 minutes is play all of Nick's clips from when he was 18 years old. And then he's going to say, this guy is awful. And he's going to call him all the names. So maybe he's never called for anybody's cancellation directly, but he's kind of leading you there no matter what. When you watch this clip, that's what he wants you to think. Just an aside.
Cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. In fact, we used to call that one of the key aspects of conservatism. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots. It's not cancellation if you urge others to stop promoting those who rhetorically fluff Nazi apologists. Those are all elements of free speech. And anyone who says differently is lying to you, and lying for the most cynical reasons to misdirect from their own defense of those Nazi apologists and their promoters. The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line. So, for those who don't understand what's going on, let's begin with Nick Fuentes. Now, as I mentioned, last week, Tucker Carlson had on Nick Fuentes. Fuentes is a 27-year-old man who's dubbed himself the leader of a movement called the Groypers. He has a large audience of alienated young white men in particular, and he's earned increased media attention over the course of the past few years, especially over the last year. Now, from Tucker Carlson's interview, you might have gathered that Fuentes has some borderline views on race, a peculiar obsession with what he calls organized Jewry, and a rather sad relationship with the female sex. But probably you came away thinking that, for the most part...
This, by the way, This is, by the way, the first time that Nick has been mentioned by Ben Shapiro by name in about 10 years. In terms of an attack, what Ben always used to do when I would watch him is he would refer to Nick and people like him as the alt-right and the far right and stuff like that. And he would never mention their topics. He would always mention that they were a fringe. And he would never call them out by name. Well, now that Nick is so popular, now that Nick has such a platform, now that we're all on board with America First, I mean, we all know who he is. The clips are blowing up on Rumble, on YouTube, on Instagram Reels, on TikTok before Larry Ellison bought it. But understand why Ben Shapiro is doing this before we get back to it. Understand why Ben is making an entire episode without ads, by the way. That's another thing. You always have Ben, when I would watch, he would always do ads every 5 minutes. ExpressVPN, Noom, things like that. Stamps.com, right? And the episode was bombarded with ads. You would be like, holy shit, Ben, let's just get back to it. But in this particular episode, 0 ads. And it kind of shows that he means business. But yeah, just an aside, it's quite crazy.
Fuentes lives on the radical edge of normality. You think that if you watch the interview, because Tucker Carlson decided that it was important not only to host Fuentes, but to smooth over his views, water them down, and make them far more palatable to a normal audience.
Not true. Not true. Not true. If you watch the interview with Nick and Tucker, Tucker particularly says that he doesn't agree with Nick's views on Jewish people because as a Christian, he is taught that all men and women were created equally, and it is against Christianity. This isn't Tucker's opinion. Tucker said, it is against Christianity, it is against my religion to hate other people. And Nick kind of didn't engage with it. He kind of just like acknowledged it and they went on. But that was a big disagreement. If you watch the interview, you saw that was a big disagreement that Tucker had. He literally said, my religion informs me that what you say is not true. Or what he thought that Nick says. Because the stuff isn't hateful. Nick says, when you watch the streams, when you watch the episodes, he said, we don't hate anybody. But these things, these institutions, these groups of people need to be questioned. Because they don't have our country's best interest at heart. So what Ben is saying right here is he's basically lying. He's being very disingenuous. Just another aside. Continuing on, here we go.
As we'll discuss in a bit, this is what Tucker Carlson does for a living. But back to Nick Fuentes. To understand just what Tucker did here, we must actually examine what Nick Fuentes says on his show and has said for almost a decade, because he was asked precisely 0 questions about any of what you're about to see.
Here we go. Here's the next 20 minutes of clips.
By Tucker Carlson. Nick Fuentes says women want to be raped.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
I'm not going to defend that one, but I would imagine there's more context to the video.
Nick Fuentes says that his followers should kill, rape, and die in his name.
Raise your right hand. All right, everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes.
I'm not going to defend that one either.
Nick Fuentes says that women are whores who shouldn't be in politics.
I will continue my crusade against women
Hold
in
on.
politics.
We're not going to talk about the substance of the clip until it's finished, but he was like 18 years old when he was doing this show at this time. Like, look at him. When he has the high hairline, when he has the short hair, he was like 18, 19 years old. This was like 8, 9 years ago. You're going all the way back to like 2017, 2018 for this clip. Like, that's how far back you had to go. So this tells me 2 things. Number one, it was hard to find clips out of context, which is not true. Then you have the second option, which is what I think they're doing here. He's had this clip for a minute. He's been ready to do the character assassination for a minute. I mean, he really hates Nick because Nick took his audience. And I think it's really crazy. I think it's really indicative of like how far behind that you had to go all the way and attack him from a video when he was 19 years old, when he was a kid. I just think that's a little bit crazy.
It's always like this, and it's so ironic. Women are like, I don't like, when you say, you have to affect the face. When you say to repeal the 19th Amendment, that offends me. That hurts my feelings. It's like, have you ever stopped and considered that maybe if you get offended, there's such a strong emotional reaction to political opinions you disagree with across the board. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you shouldn't be making political decisions. I'm not attacking women. I'm attacking whores. You have no problems, right? I'm attacking whores. I'm attacking sluts, stupid, dirty bitches.
Yeah, I don't see what was very controversial about that one, Ben. We actually a lot of us hold that opinion.
Nick Fuentes says that Jim Crow was actually better for black people.
It was better for them too, number one, but number two, who cares? Who cares? Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, they had to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal. Oh no, they had to go to a different school. Their water fountain in that famous picture was worse. Who cares? Grow up. Drink out of the fucking water fountain. It's water. It's the same. And, even if it was bad, who cares? Who cares? It's better. It's better in general. We all agree it was better for them. It's better for us. Better in general.
Okay, time out. So, I'm pretty sure I saw Ben Shapiro make this same exact argument that black people were better off prior to Jim Crow. Hold on one second. Let's search this. So we're going to go Ben Shapiro, Jim Crow. Let's see. Let's see if a clip comes up. We're going to find it here. Hold on real quick. This was old. This is from like 2012, 2013. If I can't find it, then I am going to move on here. But I'm pretty sure that Ben did say, I'm pretty sure he did insinuate that black people were better off prior to Jim Crow. Let's do this. Because he was talking about black single motherhood. And again, if I can't find this, then we're just going to move on. It is going to be what it is going to be. That's fine. But I want to be able to find this. Where is it? Here we go. You guys ready for this? So Nick made that argument, and Ben's pulling it up as a way to say, hey, this is Nick Fuentes. He's a bad guy. He thinks black people were better off before Jim Crow. Listen to what Ben says about Jim Crow in 2012.
According to Pew Research, the net worth of white families in 2013 was $141,000. For black families, it was $11,000, even less than the $19,000 it was in 2007. According to economist Edward Wolf of the University of New York, excluding vehicles and other durables, the median black family worth is just $1,700, while 40% of black families have zero or negative wealth. White family worth, in terms of financial worth, is 69 times more than that of black families. Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. You explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if
right there. Do you see it? Do you see the insane contradiction when it is inconvenient for Nick, when it is convenient for Ben to go character assassination, when Nick goes, oh, this Jim Crow is actually better for black people. And Ben uses it as like a way to condemn him. And he goes like, "Oh, this is gonna be the good character assassination. We're gonna play this clip and we're gonna get people on our side here." And then he says that. Like, what an insane contradiction, bro.
We all agree it was better for them. It's better for us. Better in general.
Nick Fuentes says that white people are justified in being racist.
I'm sorry, man. What? Ben literally made that argument. Insane.
Reason that we talk about this, by the way, I know a lot of black people see this and they go, man, why are you always talking about black people, this and that? Because there just needs to be some shame here. Well, there's a few reasons. First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Are we really going to argue with that? I mean, if you see a sketchy looking person and they do happen to be black, you're telling me that you're going to stay on the same sidewalk? It's just a question. I mean, it's not a hateful thing. If you see a sketchy looking white person, you're not going to be on the same sidewalk. If you're black and you see a sketchy looking white person, you're not going to be on the same. You're going to cross the street to prevent from walking right next to them. It's not a. You could defend that point.
Nick Fuentes is a Hitler admirer and a Holocaust denier.
Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up. It is Heil Hitler Friday, nigga. Heil Hitler, all my niggas Nazis.
All right, so that was an out of context joke.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
Another out of context joke. I've seen these clips, but I've seen them in long form. And they are out of context jokes. I mean, you might not like it, but he is joking in this scenario.
It doesn't really sound correct.
Again, I mean, this kid, look at the hairline back then. He was literally 18 years old with the Yeti mic. You're going all the way back to when this guy was 18 years old, dude. When he had 100 live viewers in the chat. What are we doing? If this is what you are resorting to, then you have lost.
Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and
But this is bad.
You have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make $6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there. The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million. Maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. And I think the Red Cookie Association said something like that. Probably 200 to 300,000 cookies baked. Probably. And in addition, in this hypothetical, I imagine that if you took aerial photographs over the kitchens, you would need to see certain smokestacks to release the smoke from baking the cookies, and the smokestacks would project certain shadows, but I guess they're not visible in the aerial photographs taken over the kitchens. Moreover, if you look at the soil texture, it's really not deep enough for mass cookie storage underground.
Nick Fuentes believes.
So here's my question. Why can't you joke about that event? Like every other event in history you're able to joke about and question. But why is it that one when people start to get a little bit crazy? I'll leave that go.
Believes that the Jews start all the wars, that perfidious Jews in positions of power ought to be killed, and says the Jews are filth who have to be removed from the country.
And once again, remember who is responsible for it all: the Jews. They are responsible for every war in the world. It's not even debatable at this point. This has nothing to do with oil. This has nothing to do with democracy. This has nothing to do with liberal internationalism. We are at war with Iran because they pose a threat to Israel's hegemony. That's why we're bombing their nukes to pave the way for regime change so Israel can dominate the region because that makes them the most powerful they can be.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up.
That was... I don't...
And I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power.
I mean, he is talking about people that are legitimately doing evil. Legitimately demonic. You can make the argument that he's coming from a good place here.
This is God's country. This is Jesus' country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
Okay, so he says the word perfidious Jews, but he's not talking about specifically killing Jewish people. Again, out of context.
Josh Hammer and Mark Levin, fuck these people. Like, deeply, seriously. All real Americans, if you are a real American, if you were born in this country, I don't even care who you are, what you are. If you are a real American that loves this country, you have generations in this country, your family or you fought for this flag, fought for the Constitution, fought for our church, fought for our civilization. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, fuck them. Fuck them. Deeply, seriously get them the fuck out of our country.
I don't know what was violent about that. You can understand where he's coming from.
Nick Fuentes, it should be mentioned, despises Donald Trump and the MAGA movement as well.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. You are, and honestly, and if you watch my show, you know I've been very critical. I've never been this far. This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam. When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were.
He's right, Ben. We all feel like that.
So, that right there is just a brief glimpse into the twisted mind of Nick Fuentes. And there's plenty more where that came from. Of course, hours of it per day, in fact. And there's no doubt that Nick Fuentes has a lot of play these days. That's because the left, by moving into a politics of anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male identitarianism, created its bizarro mirror image, a white pseudo-Christian incel identitarian movement dedicated to destroying the institutions of this country and replacing Americanism with something else.
I don't like when people dismiss the Groyper movement as incels. Like, I know a lot of Groypers. None of these people are incels. I consider myself to be one of them. I'm not an incel, clearly. So we need to stop labeling this movement, the men in this movement, the young men in this movement, as chuds, as incels, as living in their parents' basement, because we're not. I don't know where this comes from. Maybe it's because he's an incel. But this message is a very pro-masculine message. I never understood that, but I think it's very disingenuous. It's a way to discredit the movement, but it's not true.
Nick Fuentes' philosophy is not fully formed. It's an incoherent stew of malignity. But that's where Tucker Carlson enters the story. Now, since his exit from Fox News in 2023, when, of course, he was a very, very popular host, Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar. Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders.
It is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the U.S. government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. It's architecture, it's food, it's service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the
Immigration. Who said that?
average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow, I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live.
So
You'll see.
I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States, buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here.
So the criticism of this, we're first going to go to the shopping cart thing. I love Tucker. That's not true. You could go to any Aldi in America, you put a quarter in, and you get it back. And I mean, that whole incentive to steal thing. It's just, we have that here. So he wasn't exactly correct about that. When he's talking about this, and we'll put up the price.
And that's when you start.
So this low price right here, I think he's talking about like it's $100 in American currency.
To realize that ideology.
Yeah, 103. The reason that is because Russia is a poor country. Now, this was at the time. They're in a full wartime economy now, so they're doing very well. But at the time, like, that's why. It's because it's a poor country. There's not a lot of good in that country, so of course the cost of living is less because less things are happening, less goods happening. So that's why that was. In regards to the subway, I mean, what he said is true. It was very clean. And when you go on a big city subway, particularly New York, which I've been on the subway in New York, it's not as nice. There's no question. So he's correct on that.
Doesn't matter as much as you thought. Corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
He's correct about that, though. Like, that's the thing. He's very much correct about that. That's a populist message. Ben Shapiro, throughout this whole episode about Nick and Tucker, this condemnation of the two, this character assassination, it's kind of starting to be a self-own. You guys get that too? This kind of feels like a self-own. It's like, this isn't the win that he thinks it is. Just my opinion.
When Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin, by the way, Vladimir Putin was so amused by Tucker Carlson's easy questioning that he actually mocked him. Tucker Carlson has massaged the Iranian dictatorship and admitted to not asking any difficult questions of the president of that dictatorship.
The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable.
Tucker bizarrely worships at the altar of Qatar.
They're mad at you because you don't put your parents in some institution. Maybe they're trying to break up your families.
Well, it can be a reason. Honestly, I don't know what is really the purpose behind this, but we see that a lot of things that are happening are attacks on humanity in general. It's when you lose the family value, when you lose the connection between the family themselves, you will lose the connection between the people as well, on a broader level, on the people in the same neighborhood, on the people in the same region, in the same countries. And that's basically will just make us, as individuals who are, quote unquote, independent from anyone. That's what we will feel. Yet it will just make our societies vulnerable and easy to be penetrated.
That's right.
Tucker Carlson praised.
By the way, this whole thing about Qatar, we should understand that Qatar is technically a U.S. ally. Ben, all these people, these pro-Israel Zionists, these pro-Israel Jews, they love to say Tucker Carlson, but they are technically our ally. I know that's controversial to them, but this is true.
Is Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as Maduro keeps the entire country in communist penury and ships fentanyl into the United States to kill Americans by the hundreds of thousands.
Isn't that fentanyl statistic, though, 8 to 10% of the fentanyl? Or maybe is it less? Isn't the argument that the majority of the fentanyl is coming from China and Mexico? And this whole thing in Venezuela is over oil? Isn't that what they're doing? I don't know about that argument.
Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist. He's exceedingly left-wing, and that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics. Not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
It's interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
Tucker Carlson glosses Hamas, the genocidal jihadi group behind October 7th, as a political organization.
You can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization. But whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda.
Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up.
They are technically a political organization, though. They were voted in the political leadership in 2006 or 2007. But they are technically a political organization. In spite of being terrorists, they are technically a political organization. So we can be technical here. It's okay.
Artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, making sure, of course, never to mention President Trump's name, because, of course, Tucker's a coward.
And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking.
By the way, listen to the cheers he gets when he condemns Israel for being potentially behind all of the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking stuff. The people are on his side. And Ben knows this, and Ben's very angry.
That's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that.
Tucker Carlson has stated that President Trump has undermined America First and MAGA by attacking Iran, giving in to neocon ghouls like Mark Levin, while also idiotically arguing that President Trump striking Iran's nuclear facilities would lead to World War III.
He has, by the way. He has ruined it. And we don't know if it's going to lead to World War III or not because the conflict is ongoing. I mean, they act like the Iran bombing of Natanz and Fordo are the end of it. But we don't know because it's ongoing. You can't just say, boom, set in stone. We don't know. It is still happening.
Spoiler alert, it didn't.
We don't know
Tucker
that.
Carlson also said in his interview with Nick Fuentes that the people he hates most in the entire world more than ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Trans-Tifa, Marxists, rapists, murderers, are Christian Zionists, who represent an enormous chunk of the conservative base. According to Tucker Carlson, who admits that he first read the Bible all the way through just 2 years ago, Christians who support a Jewish state of Israel are heretics and blasphemers with a brain virus.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton? I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I could just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody, because like, what?
Okay, so literally, here's the thing. Here's the thing about all of this. So Ben says that Tucker and Nick spouted all of these Nazi views. When Tucker was, this is what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Tucker was saying, like, I don't think your opinion on Jews is correct. He wasn't informed on Nick's opinion. Nick doesn't hate Jews. He's said that many times. But Tucker says, I don't think your opinion on Jews is correct because my religion tells me that I can't hate anybody, that blood guilt is immoral and it's not right. And my religion tells me that hating a group based off of ethnicity is wrong. And then he says, actually, like, I think the more harmful group are Christian Zionists. But Ben didn't put that clip because he wants to make Tucker look bad. This is a classic character assassination from the guy that was fighting cancel culture for a decade. But when freedom of speech was coming for and critical of something that he cares about, one of his values, which is Israel, then he felt the need to go out and cancel Tucker and Nick.
Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Tucker Carlson has said that he despises American Jews who care about October 7th. We, in his words, don't care about America and also want to get his kids killed in a foreign war.
I've got 4 draft-age children. So if you're playing recklessly, fast and loose with their lives, then I have a right to despise you, and I do. So if you're Nikki Haley, who's running for president, or Ben Shapiro, or half the people I see on television casually mentioning the possibility of nuclear war or sending Americans to fight in the Middle East, or in any way involving us in a war that has nothing to do with prosperity and peace at home, nothing, in other words, to do with us, Americans, then I have a right to call you out and be really offended because it's my family. They live here. It's not a joke to me. There's nothing abstract about it.
How is that unreasonable? Yes, we have close to 1 million people in the past 20 years that have died in these wars that have been fighting for our country. Like, this is real stuff. And it's all been, these wars have all been in the Middle East. Families have died because their family members, their loved ones, have went on to fight for this country in the Middle East in wars that it turns out they didn't fucking matter. And when you look at the groups that want these wars, it is the Israel lobby. And that's the problem. We shouldn't have to fight in these foreign wars on an entirely different continent they're not even in our hemisphere, that have nothing to do with us. American lives shouldn't be lost. It's common sense.
But most of all, Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. Tucker Carlson,
this part that he's going to say is absolute bullshit,
says many inflammatory things, always buying back just enough of it to appear as though he's not saying what he's clearly saying. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson, for example, would never say out loud what Nick Fuentes does. He wouldn't say the things many of his guests say. And so instead, he acts as an ideological launderer.
Ben Shapiro is not like Tucker Carlson. Ben Shapiro is going to say whatever he wants about anything, particularly when it comes to October 7th. Now, remember, folks, this is a guy who justifies murdering every single Palestinian, even the children, because they, in his eyes, are terrorists too. This is a real thing. This is what Ben says. So understand, when he does this, when he condemns people for being America first, understand what his true intentions are. He's losing power. Israel first is losing power. The Israel lobby is losing power. And he sees that. This whole thinking is not a Western thought, which is what Tucker and Nick have said. This whole thinking where the other person, when you other somebody, and you say, because they're a certain group, like they deserve to be dead because they could be terrorists too, so let's just take them all out together. It's very immoral. It's very rich coming from Ben Shapiro.
He takes other people's hideous ideas, he softens them.
Wanting to kill Hamas baby, wanting to kill Palestinian or Hamas babies or whatever you're going to say, wanting to kill other babies, that's pretty hideous too.
He treats them with love and care, and then he provides them with a massive signal boost. He isn't merely talking to people in good faith, of course. He's promoting certain people and ideas and attacking others. So, for example, he'll ask a series of wildly obsequious questions to Nick Fuentes. He'll even let Nick Fuentes' support for Joseph Stalin slide.
It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess.
Tucker said a couple times, he said, I didn't push back on Nick saying, that he likes Stalin because we had so much more to talk about. And then Nick came out and he said, yes, I admire powerful leaders in history, great men of history. Obviously, Stalin was a bad guy. Nobody's disputing that. He said that. But he admires leaders in history.
Let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
But he will grill Ted Cruz about the population of Iran. Tucker Carlson will have on Vladimir Putin.
I hate that he's going to do this.
Putin's evil, anti-American mouthpiece, Alexander Dugin, and then praise him.
Alexander Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous the world over, in the English language press anyway, as, quote, Putin's brain. But he is not a political figure here in Russia. He is, once again, a philosopher. And his ideas are deeply offensive to some people. In August of 2022, his only daughter was murdered in Moscow when a car bomb killed her. U.S. intelligence says she was murdered by the Ukrainian government, and we take that at face value. But what's interesting is that, once again, Alexander Dugin is not a military leader. He's not a close daily advisor to Vladimir Putin. He is a writer who writes about big ideas. And for this, his books have been banned by the Biden administration in the United States. You cannot buy them on Amazon. Banning books in the United States because the ideas inside are too dangerous. He's often described, again in the English language press, as far right. We'll let you assess. But we wanted to talk to him about some of his ideas, these ideas that are so dangerous that his only daughter was murdered over them, and his book's been banned in the United States.
Tucker Carlson will have on a Hitler-friendly pseudo-historian to minimize the Holocaust and blame Winston Churchill for World War II. And he will call him America's best and most honest historian.
I thought Churchill...
Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. That scared the shit out of me. Sorry about that. Daryl Cooper, I mean, this is somebody that over and over again has been very forthcoming about how he doesn't hate Jewish people. He's writing an entire book on World War II and the Holocaust. He's very generous when talking about the struggles of Jewish people. Very charitable, very, very sympathetic to their cause when he talks about, I believe the book is called Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. Chapter upon chapter of the Jewish people and their plight and their struggle and how they've been marginalized against in the past. Like, this is not somebody that's a Holocaust denier or anti-Semitic, and we've been over this time and time again. But, like, this is just baseless.
Joe was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I don't really think, I think when you really...
By the way, you can make the argument objectively that Churchill was the real villain.
We get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out. You see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. You know, Germany, look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there.
And that is the pseudo-historian that Tucker Carlson has said is the best and most honest historian in America. Tucker Carlson will have on over and over a pro-Chinese propagandist who used global warming to promote global socialism, all in order to criticize Israel and hug China.
Israel has run American foreign policy in the Middle East for 30 years.
Jeffrey Sachs is Jewish. This whole thing of Tucker Carlson being anti-Semitic. Jeffrey Sachs worked in the Russian government. Yes, Jeffrey Sachs does have these opinions about China, but Jeffrey Sachs is Jewish. So calling Tucker an anti-Semite when not, I can't even think of the word, preventing to tell the audience that this guy who Tucker is supposedly hating does happen to be Jewish and has been on the show many times. Jeffrey Sachs, very intelligent.
That's how it works. This is actually the truth. If we drop our angst on big bad Russia, actually, we didn't have a chance to talk about it this time. Maybe another time, big bad China, which is also not going to invade the United States, not going to threaten us, not going to go to war with us. They got they're trying to deal with aging, and they've got their declining population and many other things. Not that they're falling apart. It's a very impressive civilization, but they're not a threat to the United States, honestly. And Iran is not a threat.
That's true. Understand, China hasn't been to war in a very long time. And they're not going to attack the United States because we buy all their shit. We are the number one buyer of all of their shit. They supply the cheap stuff and we buy all the cheap stuff. They need us and we need them. We need them for their cheap labor. They need us for our purchasing power and what we buy. Like, we coexist with each other. They're not going to attack us. In terms of their civilization, yeah, they have a fucking impressive civilization. They're building giant, humongous, beautiful buildings that go across mountains, and it takes a relatively small amount of time. Yet when you look at the Key Bridge of Baltimore, for example, a ship crashed into it, and it was about 1.5 years that this happened. Crashed into it. Now, you would think with comparable time, right, comparable workers, comparable, infrastructure, that we would be able to put up this small bridge within a couple of months. It's 18 months, and it's like 20% built. The Key Bridge in Baltimore, you got to look it up. But when you look at China, these buildings, these pieces of architecture, the highway, the freeway system, oh, it is tremendous. I mean, we're talking a spiral freeway. I saw this on X a couple weeks ago. A spiral freeway, probably I'd say like 20 different spirals, exits getting off. I mean, the engineering is insane. And Ben's lack of awe, lack of honesty when speaking about Jeffrey Sachs, really disingenuous.
Tucker Carlson, of course, brings on pro-Hamas voices episode after episode after episode. The instances are almost limitless. Tucker Carlson will host Andrew Tate, a pornographer and scam artist who mocks rape victims and preaches a cult of narcissism and cruelty. And, of course, Tucker Carlson will glorify him. And
also, Andrew Tate is responsible for the resurgence of masculinity in Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So let's not say all of his bad qualities. Yes, he's a human being, so he does have bad qualities, but let's not pretend that he's the biggest factor of this.
Present him as a maligned truth teller rather than an emblem of moral rot. See, this is how Tucker Carlson's ideological laundering works. You bring your dirty, ugly ideologies to Tucker Carlson's rhetorical car wash.
Again, do you notice that Ben is just playing clip after clip after clip and not really giving any information? Like, this right here is the first time in a while in this episode where he's actually giving an opinion instead of just stealing other people's clips and then putting it on his show.
He mixes it with some of the vestigial respect Americans have for him from his Fox News days, and voila, hideous ideas suddenly become mainstream. And then, of course, Tucker denies he said anything controversial at all. He was just asking questions. He was just interviewing people. You don't want him to cancel.
Bro, this is what the left has been accusing the right of for the past decade and a half. Does Ben Shapiro not understand that he is doing exactly what the left has been doing for the past decade and a half? But you understand this, right? You realize that. This is what the left used to say about Joe Rogan. Oh, Joe Rogan, he's platforming others. Oh, he's platforming all these harmful voices. Oh, he's just asking questions. No, he's platforming all of these dangerous voices. Like, bro, Ben, this is why nobody gives a fuck about you anymore. This is why you don't have viewers anymore. Your viewership base is dead. Because we understand that you are a wolf in sheep's clothing. You are a hypocrite because for the past 10 years, you pretended to fight for cancel culture. And you fought against the left. But when freedom of speech didn't work out for you, when you disagreed with what people were saying, then you condemn them. Then you call them anti-Semitic. Because it's going against your belief system now. You fucking hypocrite.
People, do you? Of course, there is no First Amendment right to a Tucker Carlson sensual massage. But to listen to Tucker, you'd think there was, so long as you despise America, oppose President Trump's foreign policy, and bear a peculiar dislike of Jews. Tucker Carlson, you see, is a coward. And here is where his relationship with Nick Fuentes begins, with Nick Fuentes correctly pointing out that Tucker Carlson is a coward. You see, Tucker Carlson, a few weeks back, had on Candace Owens to treat her to his usual ideological laundering services. That's after years of...
Again, Candace completely mogs Ben when it comes to views. I mean, Ben, he has a fraction of the viewership that Candace has. And I would argue she doesn't have anything of substance, really. It's just a bunch of gossip. But she left the Daily Wire and exploded.
Candace Owens saying things like this.
And it is the case that dinosaur bones, for whatever reason, are always just found by the paleontologist. Like, it's not like you and me walking outside. I'm like, hey, a dinosaur bone. And
I'm not
or by somebody who's related to a paleontologist. It's very strange. And then, but it was just convenient for Israel that JFK got shot. It was just convenient, you guys. Totally convenient. It was convenient for Israel, by the way, when the towers went down.
I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1,000% blame the Zionists. Like let
He's making her look like a crazy bitch.
that be my parting word.
I'm waking people up to the fact that pedophiles are in power.
Yes.
They are literally in power. And that is intentional because then they can be controlled while they are in power. And they are also exhibiting signs of a psychopathology that lets them know that they will do harm to the masses and feel nothing because they were themselves, many of them, raped when they were children. Yep. It is not a coincidence that Justin Trudeau is gay. Obama, gay. Zelensky, gay. Emmanuel Macron, gay and married to a trans man who molested him when he was a child.
Okay, so a lot of the stuff she says is like kind of correct. I won't endorse the crazier shit. But you have to understand, the way she's saying it is just retarded. But understand where he's coming from.
Well, Candace Owens had recently hosted Nick Fuentes, and this led Tucker Carlson, in an attempt to dissociate from Fuentes, to label him a weird little gay kid operating from a basement, and a Fed as well.
That's obvious to me. I've been around a long time. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, and I will say I don't understand it. We were very kind to him. Like, I truly, like, we almost said, like, we felt maybe he was a bit lonely. We should invite him back for dinner. I mean, that's how good of an experience I had.
Clearly it's
and then it was a 180. So it's either A, it's being driven from, like, a little boy insecurity, and he just was so worried that he, like, just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think there's that
could be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on. Yeah.
Well, Nick Fuentes did not take kindly to this. After all, here was Tucker Carlson, a man Nick Fuentes correctly sees as a fellow traveler, dismissing him, all the while refusing to say the sorts of things for which Fuentes takes slings and arrows. And so Fuentes unleashed on him as a fraud and also as an expert on gaslighting.
Tucker is like the goat of gaslighting. But unironically, he goes up at the memorial and said, Charlie Kirk told the truth. You know who else told the truth? Jesus. And you know what happened? He got killed by Jews. And people said, so are you saying that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk in the way that they killed Jesus for telling the truth because they hate the truth? And Tucker said, I never said that. You're crazy. I never said that. Everyone eats hummus. What do you mean? Everyone runs Jerusalem. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them.
Well, there was one big problem for Tucker Carlson in all of this. Nick Fuentes is absolutely 100% correct. Tucker is a coward, and Tucker's audience, much of which he shares with Nick Fuentes, knows it. And so Tucker hit upon a final stratagem. He let Nick Fuentes cuck him. He brought Nick Fuentes on to legitimate his ideology. He signal boosted Fuentes, glossed him, shined him, presented him to the world, all in order to protect his own reputation with his online base, a base he is competing over with Nick Fuentes. Now, of course, Tucker has a right to do all of this for the 100th time. He can do what he likes. This is America. But there's no question that Tucker has become the most virulent super spreader of vile ideas in America. And the rest of us who oppose those vile ideas.
The only reason Ben thinks his ideas are vile is because they're not in his interest. When these ideas were in Ben Shapiro's interest, he was pro-Tucker. Understand, in 2016, when Donald Trump said to AIPAC, you're going to not like me, to the Adelsons, you're not going to like me because I'm not going to take your money. When Donald Trump was truly America first, Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper. Understand, Ben Shapiro, is only in favor of things when they benefit Ben Shapiro and Israel. Mask off moment.
Have every right to call him that. There's one other element here that's even darker if possible. Tucker Carlson preys on the friendship he proclaims with others, and then he knifes them directly between the shoulder blades when convenient for him. Tucker Carlson is, in short, a terrible friend. Tucker Carlson was supposedly Charlie Kirk's friend. Charlie believed that Nick Fuentes was vermin. That's a direct quote. He believed that because Nick Fuentes dedicated his life to destroying Charlie Kirk and TPUSA from the inside.
And that's actually not true. Charlie Kirk was firing people that were even watching America First, Nick Fuentes' show. Anybody that remotely was associated with Nick Fuentes that was working inside Turning Point USA, Charlie fired. Charlie fired Ashley St. Clair for appearing in a picture with Nick Fuentes. Let's not say that Nick started all this whole thing.
In fact, here's Nick Fuentes describing Charlie Kirk the month before Charlie was murdered.
Charlie Kirk cannot call himself a Christian anymore. Sorry, you forfeited that. I do not want to hear, and you cannot allow Charlie Kirk to go to one more public event, one more question and answer, one more ask me anything, without being protested, without being shouted down, without being interrogated about this. This guy goes around from campus to campus in the most artificial and phony and fake way.
And here is Nick Fuentes describing how he destroyed TPUSA from the inside.
Whether he chooses to confront me or not, whether he has dignity and honor or not, it's just a matter of time. My ideas are already there. I've already impregnated your organization. I took Turning Point USA and I fucked it. I took your organization.
I remember this. I was listening. I wasn't watching. I was listening to the show. But he did exactly this, by the way, if you understand what Turning Point's going through now. He did exactly this.
I took your baby, Turning Point USA, and I fucked it. And I've been fucking it. And that's why it's filled with groypers. That's why your whole crew, that's why the people around you, that's why your chapter presidents, that's why your attendees, they're all groypers.
You have to admit something. Whether or not you like Nick, he doesn't just have insult humor. He is actually genuinely funny.
And here's Nick Fuentes calling Charlie Kirk unpatriotic and talking about how he's a retarded idiot and saying all firepower should be focused on Charlie Kirk.
I think a lot of people are starting.
Again, this is back when he was 18. Are we seriously doing this? Why are we going all the way back when he had 100 followers, 100 viewers in the chat? Why are we going all the way back? Come on, dude. What are we doing?
To find out.
Do we want to go back 9-10 years for what you said about Trump? No, we don't do that. But you were a never Trumper. You criticized Donald Trump every day. How about if we go back 5 years when you were telling everybody to take the vaccine? You were waiting for the data. You were telling everybody, I'm taking the vaccine. I think you should take the vaccine too. Do you remember this? I remember this. let's go back for 5 years ago, Ben Shapiro. Let's see what you were talking about then, because I vehemently remember. I hope I was using that word correctly. I clearly remember that you were on the side of the vaccine. I listened to the show every day then. I remember you were a large proponent of the vaccine.
Charlie Kirk is not the patriot that he says he is. And so I look at what happened last night and I think to myself, this is totally a doable operation. You know, Charlie Kirk in the grand scheme of things is just some retarded idiot. The dog is terrified. I had to go upstairs and reassure him because I'm screaming at my screen, calling Charlie Kirk a bitch and everything. The contrast could not be more clear. Charlie Kirk is a totally unexceptional human being. A moral struggle that's happening on the higher dimension, right? Which is Christ versus the devil. Who does Charlie Kirk serve? You know, is he really a Christian? Is he really Christ-like when he supports foreign wars and Israel and all this? Look at the people he's taking money from. You know, so the guy's a fake Christian. The guy's not a patriot. He hates our country. He's un-American. Let's focus all our firepower on Charlie Kirk. Why are we doing this? It's because Charlie Kirk is a fake patriot, a fake Christian, and he hates his people. He's anti-white. This is our angle.
Nick Fuentes, despite
he was anti-white. He was pro-legal immigration. You can justify those clips.
Charlie Kirk. And for good reason, because Charlie Kirk actually opposed Nick's evil program. Here's what Charlie Kirk had to say about Nick Fuentes' agenda.
But if you go back to the original founding fathers, they intended this to be a European nation for white men of good stock and character.
So, can you show me, let me answer the question. Can you show me where in the United States Constitution it says that?
It wasn't in the Constitution.
It wasn't in the Constitution because they didn't believe it.
The founding...
What does the phrase e pluribus unum mean? What does the phrase e pluribus unum mean?
Why is that relevant?
Because it was on every founding document and presidential seal from our founding, which means out of many, one. You, sir, and your ideology is not conservative. It is right-wing, identitarian, and has no place in the conservative movement, my friend. Get out of line. Get out of line.
And so I think we can be honest about this particular idea from Charlie. It was a wrong opinion. When you look at the demographic shift, when you have people that don't come from Christian countries of European descent and they immigrate here, they don't assimilate. Things actually get much worse. I know for people like Ben Shapiro, for example, it doesn't matter because he has dual loyalty to Israel and he can go live in Israel anytime he wants. And he's on the side of the corporations that are using groups like Indians and Chinese people through the H-1B visa program to exploit them for cheap labor. And I understand that he's friends with all these people that are making more money off of these profits, these corporations that are exploiting this cheap labor at the expense of American citizens. I understand. But let's not pretend that the country was... I mean, let's just face it was better when it was more white. That's just what it is. We can go back, look at what the country looked like in the 80s and the 90s. Even 2000, 2010, 2015, 10 years ago, the country was better. And it was also more white. I think the guy that asked Charlie Kirk that question had a legitimate point. It just bears repeating that this whole thing, Charlie Kirk was not pro-white. And it's a hole. It's a hole in his argument.
I don't platform trolls. And I don't platform and I don't discuss people or I don't debate with people that are not good faith actors. And
you debate Maoists and people who champion.
They can keep on yelling at how successful we are and our big events and well over 1,000 employees. But there's a lot of jealousy out there. We build, they complain. We succeed, we win. They blame the Jews.
Charlie Kirk was literally saying the day before he was shot and assassinated on television to Ben Shapiro that we should question all of these Jewish billionaires. Do you not remember this? The hypocrisy from this man. Insane. Which is why he doesn't have influence anymore. Which is why he's done.
After Charlie's death, TPUSA made Tucker Carlson one of its chief faces.
And
Tucker,
good.
of course, spoke at Charlie's memorial, where he implied that hummus-eating nefarious Jews killed Charlie, with no mention of the ideology of the actual alleged murderer, who was, of course, a trans activist gay furry. Tucker Carlson, in fact, has spent more time talking about Jews and Israel since Charlie's death than about the Trans-Tifa ideology that motivated Charlie Kirk's killer. By a long shot, it's not close, which is not a surprise, since he seems to spend very little time these days attacking anyone on the left. Well, now Tucker Carlson has seen fit to launder Nick Fuentes, the person who hated Charlie most and who wished him destruction. That's not an act of friendship, it's an act of sick evil. And then, of course, there's Tucker Carlson's relationship with the vice president. Certainly, Vice President Vance has been quite generous with Tucker Carlson. That loyalty was not reciprocated last week, to say the least. Here, for example, is what Nick Fuentes has said about J.D. Vance's wife, Usha.
Andrew Tate and Bronze Age pervert and all these people, for years, all they talk about is going to the gym, being a vitalist, fighting the Matrix, India smells bad, all this kind of shit. And now they're all in favor of a fat race mixer who's married to a Jeet who named his son Vivek, who was mentored by a Jewish neocon and a gay fed, Peter Thiel. This guy has a non-white wife and a kid named Vivek. This guy is going to be a defender of white identity? I don't think so. This guy's going to defend American identity?
You slammed J.D. Vance for having an Indian wife. Yet Trump's wife is an immigrant who is working here illegally for a time. His son is half foreign, bilingual, and holds dual citizenship. Yet you give him a pass. You're either a hypocrite or just retarded.
She's white. Dude, she's white. If we had millions of Slovenian supermodels immigrating to America, I don't think we'd have a big problem with it.
Tucker Carlson.
Ben thinks this is a huge own. Dude, we all agree with Nick. We all agree that this is an issue. We all agree that this guy is not American first. And that, yes, JD actually had to answer for why he has an Indian wife. He said, I married my wife. My wife and I, we found each other when I was not a practicing Catholic. I hope that she converts. He literally said, I hope that she converts. Bro, we are winning.
Had on Nick Fuentes and did not ask him a single question about any of this. He just brought him on to launder his ugly ideas and make him more popular. That doesn't seem quite like the act of a friend. Which, finally, brings us to the Heritage Foundation. Now, I have a long and admiring relationship with the Heritage Foundation. One of the very first outlets to pick up my syndicated column when I was 17 years old, 24 years ago, was townhall.com, then a property of the Heritage Foundation. I know most of the leadership very well, and I have for decades. I know Kevin Roberts, and I like him, and I'm grateful for his contributions to the conservative movement. If you're a regular watcher of this show, you can check the interview I did with Kevin on the release of his book just last December. Which is why what Kevin Roberts did last week is tragic and awful. He put out a statement that Heritage Foundation didn't just stand by Tucker Carlson. Kevin instead said openly and repeatedly that Tucker Carlson can do nothing, ever, that will sever his relationship with the conservative movement. He said that after and in defense of Tucker's glossing of Hitler defender Nick Fuentes. And he added that only members of the globalist class, direct quote, a venomous coalition, direct quote, subject to the dictates of someone else's agenda, direct quote, oppose Heritage's ongoing relationship with Tucker Carlson, which means that according to Kevin Roberts, apparently, anyone opposing the ongoing mainstreaming of Tucker Carlson is acting on behalf of a foreign power. Kevin's statement is a betrayal of the Heritage Foundation's history and principles, which is presumably why both Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes loved it. And that's a tragedy, because America needs a robust conservative organization based on principle and ideas, not personal loyalty to bad actors like Tucker Carlson.
Bro, you have a personal loyalty to the worst actor in Benjamin Netanyahu, who is literally in the investigation for war crimes. He is not allowed to go to Poland because they will put him in jail for war crimes. Don't say that he has a relationship with bad actors. You interviewed a dictator and you gave him a friendly interview. The guy is wanted for crimes against humanity. And you gave him a friendly interview. You criticized Tucker for having a friendly interview with Putin where you didn't ask any harmful questions. It was like you were interviewing a member of your family. I watched the interview, half of it, then I had to turn it off because it was bullshit. But it was a buddy thing. Don't give me that.
We need strong leaders in the conservative movement, willing to speak out against the moral rot that threatens our future. I hope Kevin Roberts and...
Moral rot? You endorsed killing Palestinian babies. Don't give me moral rot.
Heritage show us that they can still be those leaders. But if not, we'll have to look elsewhere. So, why is all of this happening? Because, like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party is being eaten by its radicals. Many in the political class are too cowardly to stand up. Apparently, they're willing to play footsie with groypers and hug Tucker Carlson out of fear of somehow losing support. They've been bamboozled by the lies of the X algorithm and the TikTok metrics. The left followed its radicals to electoral hell. Apparently, many on the right wish to do the same. Forget the morality.
Electoral hell. Zohran Mamdani just won. The far left identity politics works. If you cater to the people that are screaming because they have a lot of issues, it turns out people in New York couldn't afford life. And so they chose the left-wing radical. Now, eventually, people on the right that have different beliefs are going to pick the same ideas up in terms of using those right-wing radical ideas and voting for a political candidate that represents those ideas. So, that's what happened, and it worked. So don't be surprised when the right's version of Zohran Mamdani comes, because it's going to work.
Then, for just a moment, let's be pragmatic. Here is the thing. Americans hate Nick Fuentes' philosophy. They think it's...
No, they don't. He is more powerful and more popular than ever. His interview with Tucker Carlson, last time I checked, is the 4th most popular video on Tucker's channel. What are you doing? We're talking after Charlie Kirk got killed. 150 live viewers in the chat. Live. You don't get 150,000 views. Sorry. You don't get 150,000 views on an episode anymore, dude. You've fallen off a cliff. Don't give me that.
Trash. Republicans, by the polling, think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash.
It's not true. Democrats.
The other thing. Americans hate Tucker Carlson's laundered anti-Americanism. Republicans think it's trash. Independent.
You are anti-American, Ben. You are anti-American. You support us giving $16 billion over the past 2 years to a foreign country that has murdered over 70,000 innocent lives. You understand that, right? And the numbers keep climbing because now they're looking through the debris. They're looking to see how many people were actually killed, how many innocents were actually killed. Don't give me that.
Think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. Americans are not pro-segregation.
Why are we appealing to Democrats and why are we appealing to the left? I don't understand that.
Pro-rape, anti-woman, pro-child marriage, anti-black, anti-Jew, anti-Indian, anti-Latino, anti-Constitution, pro-Hitler, nut.
You are anti-white. You. Don't give me that.
Jobs like Nick Fuentes. And Americans are not pro-Putin, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-Venezuela, pro-Hamas, pro-Fuentes, pro-Tate idiots like Tucker Carlson.
But we're all anti-Israel, buddy.
They hate this vile garbage. If Republicans decide to cower before the likes of neo-Nazis and their propagandizers, they deserve to lose. And they will lose.
They're not going to lose.
Neo-Nazis and their propagandizers are not Republicans. They're not America First. They're not MAGA. They sure as hell aren't conservative. These people aren't to my right. They're not attached in any way to the fundamental principles of conservatism.
You are not conservative.
And these people have already declared themselves to be my enemies. I'd be a fool not to take them seriously. If they get their way, they will hollow out the Republican Party, lead it to electoral catastrophe, and empty it and the country of any semblance of decency in the process.
Yes, we are going to hollow out the Republican Party, but we're not going to lose. It's a very popular position, actually, because we all vote. And if the Republican Party doesn't reflect our values, come 2026, come the midterms, come 2028, then we will not show up. The Republican Party is going to cater to our needs, or we will not vote for them, in which they will have to choose between all the big money and the people that get them elected. And I think they're going to choose us, because without us, they don't have power.
My answer is no. No to the groypers. No to their publicists like Tucker Carlson. No to those who champion them. No to demoralization. No to bigotry and anti-meritocratic horse shit. No to anti-Americanism. No. This is our country. This is our party. And this is our conservative movement. And I will not stand by while it is handed over to those who betray the most fundamental principles I have spent my entire life defending and advocating.
And that's Israel.
That is a path to defeat and a path to moral oblivion. I reject it because if we lose the right, we will lose to the left. And either way.
They have taxpayer-funded abortions in Israel. What about that? Moral oblivion.
We'll lose the country. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
Again, he ran 0 ads. For the first time ever of me hearing or watching a show from Ben Shapiro, 0 ads. No ExpressVPN, no Stamps.com, no LifeLock, nothing. So, there you go. That's the big meltdown. He had a generational meltdown for a generational run. So, folks, what do you think about the video? Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. For as low as 99 cents per month, you could support this channel financially. It's not that hard. You can go to the channel, go under the membership tab, and you can look. I'm not replying to comments anymore unless you have the 99 cent per month membership. You can do that. And we will have other platforms eventually, other tiers where you can get more incentives to purchase these options. But in the meantime, that's a start. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you had a great time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you were a little bit more red-pilled today. So thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.